The moment my brother waved crab-soaked bread near my face and laughed, I knew Thanksgiving was about to become something my family could not hide under a tablecloth. My name is Nora Winslow. I am a food safety consultant. I design allergy protocols for schools, restaurants, hotels, and commercial kitchens. I have spent my adult life teaching people that safety is not fear. Safety is respect. But in my family, my seafood allergy was treated like a personality flaw. Too sensitive, too dramatic, too controlling, always making meals difficult, always ruining the mood. That was what my older brother Grant said every year. And every year, my parents told me to ignore him. Until the year he decided to prove that my allergy was just a joke. He set a bowl of crab soup at my place. He dipped bread into it. He swung it close to my face while laughing. And before I could stop it, a little girl grabbed that contaminated piece of bread from the edge of the table and took a bite. Her name was Chloe. She was 7. Within minutes, her lips began to swell. Her breathing changed. Her mother screamed. And while my brother stood frozen, the Thanksgiving table became an emergency scene. I should begin years earlier. Because no family disaster starts at the moment everyone finally sees it. It starts in all the smaller moments people were trained to excuse. Grant was the funny one. That was the family story. If he insulted you, he was joking. If he humiliated you, you were supposed to laugh. If he crossed a boundary, you were supposed to prove you were not boring by letting him cross it again. My parents called him charismatic. Teachers called him disruptive. I called him exhausting. But in our house, exhaustion was something I was expected to swallow politely. My mother, Elaine, believed peace meant no one uncomfortable had to change. My father, Robert, believed Grant's behavior was harmless as long as no one used legal words. And I was the daughter who learned to arrive at family meals with a backup snack, an emergency medication kit, and a prepared smile. Because if I asked too many questions about ingredients, I was difficult. If I brought my own food, I was insulting the cook. If I reminded people about cross-contamination, I was embarrassing everyone. By the time I was 32, I had built a career around being believed by strangers and doubted by my own blood. My seafood allergy was not mild. It was not a rash that disappeared with a glass of water and a shrug. It was throat tightness, hives, chest pressure, the terrifying sense that your own body has become a locked room and the air is leaving it. I carried EpiPens everywhere. I read labels like contracts. I asked servers careful questions. I trained kitchen staff on color-coded cutting boards, separate utensils, allergen logs, and emergency procedures. In my professional world, those things were normal. In my family, they were treated like a performance. Grant loved saying, "Nobody was allergic when we were kids." I always answered, "Some people were, they just did not survive to become family stories." He hated that answer. Grant worked as a regional sales director for a hospitality supplier. He sold to restaurants and hotels. He liked saying he understood the food business. What he understood was confidence, not safety, not procedure, not consequences. He understood how to sound important in rooms where no one checked the details. That skill worked for him for years. Until Thanksgiving. The invitation came from my mother in early November. Everyone will be there this year, she said, as if everyone had ever meant comfort to me. Grant would be there with his fiancée, Tessa. My Aunt Marlene would be there. Our neighbor Amelia would come with her daughter, Chloe, because Amelia's husband was deployed and my mother liked feeling generous when other people could see it. I asked the same questions I asked every year. Any seafood? Any oyster stuffing? Any crab dip? Any shrimp appetizers? My mother sighed. Nora, we know. That answer never comforted me. People who say we know often mean please stop reminding us. I offered to bring several dishes and label them clearly. She said that would be wonderful, then added, but please don't make it look like a conference. I knew what she meant. No labels big enough to embarrass the host. No warnings that might disturb the family fantasy that we were all careful people. I said, food labels keep people safe. She said, sometimes they make people feel accused. I should have stayed home. But I still believed that careful planning could protect me from careless people. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Grant began preparing his joke. I did not know that then. I would learn it later from text messages. He had written to Aunt Marlene. I'm putting crab soup near Nora just to see if she loses her mind. Marlene replied with a laughing emoji. Don't kill her, she wrote. Grant answered. Relax, she exaggerates everything. There were messages to his friends too. One said, Shh. Watch my sister turn Thanksgiving into an emergency drill. Another said, if she brings an EpiPen to dinner, I'm going to lose it. He thought he was planning entertainment. What he was actually doing was creating a record. That is the thing arrogant people forget. A joke with preparation becomes intent. A prank with warnings becomes negligence. And a family dinner can become evidence before anyone has even carved the turkey. Thanksgiving afternoon smelled like butter, sage, cinnamon, and denial. My mother's dining room looked beautiful. Candles, gold napkin rings, white plates, a centerpiece of orange roses and eucalyptus. I brought roasted vegetables, mashed potatoes made in my own kitchen, and a cranberry-orange salad sealed in containers with clear labels. Grant saw the labels and laughed before he even took off his coat. Here comes the health department. Tessa gave him a warning look. I liked Tessa. She was calm and observant, the kind of woman who noticed tension before anyone admitted it. She asked me quietly whether there was anything she should avoid putting near me. That question nearly made me cry. Because sometimes basic respect feels enormous when you have been deprived of it for years. Amelia arrived with Chloe, who wore a green dress and carried a stuffed fox. Chloe had allergies too, Amelia told my mother. Tree nuts and shellfish. My mother made the sympathetic face people make when danger belongs to a guest. We'll be careful, she said. Grant smiled into his glass. I saw it. I wish now that I had trusted the chill it sent through me. Dinner began without incident. For almost 20 minutes, I let myself breathe. The turkey was safe. The sides near me were safe. Chloe sat between her mother and Tessa, carefully eating mashed potatoes and green beans. Then Grant disappeared into the kitchen. When he returned, he carried a white ceramic bowl. The smell reached me before the bowl did. Crab? My throat tightened from fear first, not allergy. There is a difference, but both feel like betrayal when you are sitting at your mother's table. Grant set the bowl directly in front of my plate. There, he said, a little exposure therapy. Tessa said, Grant, stop. Amelia pulled Chloe's chair back slightly. I said, move it away from me. Grant dipped a piece of bread into the soup. He lifted it and waved it near my face. See, you're fine. I pushed my chair back. Grant, this is dangerous. He laughed. No, Nora, you are dramatic. Then everything happened too quickly. Chloe reached for the bread. She was 7. She saw food. She did not understand contamination. Her fingers closed around the piece Grant had dipped in crab soup before Amelia could stop her. She took one bite. For a second, there was only silence. Then Amelia screamed. Chloe's lips began swelling. Her cheeks flushed. She grabbed at her throat. The room exploded. Chairs scraped. My mother started saying, "Oh my God," over and over. Tessa shouted for someone to call 911. Grant stood there holding the rest of the bread. Not laughing now. Not charming. Just empty. I moved before I thought. My EpiPen was in my bag. Denise Wallace, my parents' retired paramedic neighbor, had been standing near the kitchen doorway. She reached me at the same time I reached my bag. "Give it to me," she said. Her voice was not loud. It was trained. I handed her the EpiPen. Denise administered it while Amelia held Chloe and sobbed into her hair. I will never forget the sound Chloe made trying to breathe. The ambulance arrived in 7 minutes. 7 minutes can be a lifetime when a child is fighting air. Paramedics took over. They asked what she had eaten. Everyone talked at once. I did not. I pointed to the crab soup. The bread on the floor? The napkin Grant had used. The place setting. Professional instinct took over because emotion would have collapsed me. When the ambulance doors closed, Amelia climbed in beside her daughter. Tessa followed in her own car. Grant began pacing. My father finally found his voice. "Nora, we need to calm down." I looked at him. A child had just been treated by paramedics because of that bowl. And still, his first instinct was not truth. It was control. "Shh," I said. "No one touches anything." My mother blinked. What? No one clears the table. No one washes the bowl. No one throws away the bread. This is evidence. Grant snapped. Are you insane? I turned to him. No, I am finally treating your joke with the seriousness it earned. I photographed everything. The bowl at my place, the bread on the floor, the smear of soup on the edge of the table, the redness blooming on my own wrist where Grant had flicked a drop while waving the bread. My father kept saying, Nora, enough. Enough! That word is always interesting. People rarely say enough when harm begins. They say it when the harmed person starts documenting. Denise returned from the driveway after giving paramedics her statement. She looked at Grant with the kind of disgust only retired emergency workers can carry. Then she said, I'll write down exactly what I saw. My father's face changed. That was when he realized this was leaving the family. My mother whispered, Please, Nora, Grant did not mean for a child to get hurt. I looked at her. He meant to make danger entertaining. Grant said, It was a joke. I said, Then explain it to Chloe's doctors. He looked away. For the first time in my life, he had nothing clever to say. At the hospital, Chloe was admitted for observation. Her reaction stabilized, but the doctors were careful. Severe allergic reactions can return after the first wave. Amelia sat beside her daughter's bed, looking hollowed out by terror. I arrived with safe snacks, a phone charger, and every document I had already started organizing. Amelia hugged me for a long time. Then she said, I don't want to destroy your family. I almost laughed. Not because anything was funny. Because I had spent my whole life being handed responsibility for damage I did not create. I said, My brother did that, not you. Tessa arrived later. Her eyes were red. She asked to speak with me in the hallway. I found something, she said. She showed me Grant's group chat. Screenshots, messages, his plan, his words, his laughter before the emergency. Tessa's hand shook. I thought he was immature, she said. I didn't know he was cruel. I looked through the glass at Chloe sleeping beneath hospital blankets. Cruelty often hides inside immaturity until someone gets hurt, I said. The legal process began the next week. Amelia hired an attorney. I hired one too. Not because I wanted money from my family, because I wanted the truth protected before my parents could soften it into a misunderstanding. Grant tried to rewrite everything immediately. He said he had not known Chloe was allergic. He said I overreacted. He said the bread was nowhere near me. He said everyone was laughing. Then the smart home footage surfaced. My parents had a camera in the kitchen to monitor deliveries and the side entrance. It had recorded Grant preparing the bowl. Recorded him laughing. Recorded him saying, Nora will lose her mind. There are moments when evidence feels like oxygen, not because it erases the harm, because it stops the room from denying that the harm happened. When my attorney played the clip for me, I cried. I did not cry when Grant waved the bread. I did not cry when Chloe was carried out. I did not cry while photographing the table. But when I heard his voice on video, planning my humiliation like a party trick, something old in me broke open. My parents called it betrayal. Not what Grant did. What I did by refusing to bury it. My father came to my house 1 week after Thanksgiving. He stood on my porch in the rain with no umbrella, as if discomfort made him noble. Your brother could lose his job, he said. I said, Chloe could have lost her life. His jaw tightened. That is not fair. What part? He did not answer. My mother sent longer messages. Grant is scared. Grant did not understand. Grant has always pushed too far, but he loves you. I wrote back once. Love does not test whether someone can breathe. After that, I stopped responding. My nervous system had spent decades letting my family inside because they had keys made of blood. I changed the locks. Not on my door. On my access. The mediation took place in Portland. 3 hours. 2 conference rooms. Lawyers moving back and forth with folders, numbers, medical records, screenshots, statements, and liability assessments. Grant arrived pale and angry. Tessa sat beside him at first. My parents sat behind him like reputation could be physically shielded. Amelia sat beside me. Her hands were folded so tightly her knuckles looked white. At one point, Grant's attorney called it a prank that went wrong. I leaned forward. No, I said. A prank surprises someone. This endangered a child after years of warnings. The attorney stopped using that word. The final settlement was $720,000. $250,000 for Chloe's medical and therapy trust. $220,000 for my income loss, trauma, and professional harm. $250,000 in punitive civil payment to avoid criminal escalation and public litigation. My parents became financial guarantors. Grant signed with a hand that shook. Then Tessa removed her engagement ring. She placed it on the table in front of him. I cannot marry someone who needed a child to stop laughing, she said. Grant's life unraveled quickly after that. His employer fired him from his regional sales director position once the settlement and internal complaint reached the company. The hospitality industry is built on trust around food. A man who turned an allergen into entertainment was bad for business. He sold his house, then his car, then moved into a smaller apartment and took commission-based sales work and logistics. My parents called it excessive. I called it consequences finally arriving at the correct address. I will not pretend I felt joyful. Consequences are not always satisfying when they land on someone whose baby pictures are in the same albums as yours. But sadness is not the same as regret. I regretted the years of warnings ignored. I regretted every holiday where I smiled while my body prepared for danger. I regretted that Chloe paid the price for my family's refusal to take me seriously. I did not regret telling the truth. Truth did not destroy Grant. Truth simply stopped holding him up. My own recovery was not clean. People wanted the story to end at the settlement. Money paid, documents signed, villain punished, survivor empowered. Real life is messier. For months, I could not sit at a crowded table without mapping every dish. I woke from dreams where bread floated toward me across a dining room and I could not move. I started therapy for anxiety and food-related trauma. I learned that the body keeps minutes the mind wants to skip. Sometimes I hated that. I was the professional, the consultant, the person others called when safety failed. But expertise does not make you immune to being hurt. It only gives you language after the hurt arrives. Slowly, I rebuilt. Not by returning to who I was before Thanksgiving. There was no before worth returning to. The old Nora survived by preparing for people who refused to change. The new Nora stopped confusing preparation with permission. Safe table design began with a phone call from a preschool director. She had heard about the case. Her school had 3 children with severe allergies, and she said something that stayed with me. I do not want to wait until something terrible happens before doing the right thing. That became the beginning. I built a consulting company focused on safe kitchen design, allergen workflow, school lunch protocols, restaurant training, staff accountability, and emergency response planning. I named it Safe Table Design. At first, I worked from my dining room, the same room where I had avoided hosting family meals for years. Then schools started calling. Then restaurants. Then community centers. Then hotels. Every training ended with the same line. Safety is not sensitivity. Safety is respect. People wrote it down. Some put it on kitchen walls. The first time I saw it printed above a school cafeteria prep station, I stood in the hallway and cried. Because my family had mocked the sentence for years before I ever said it out loud. Now strangers were using it to protect children. Chloe recovered. Not instantly. Not without fear. But she recovered. Her medical trust covered follow-up care, therapy, and allergy education. Amelia and I became close in a way neither of us expected. Trauma can bind people unfairly. But honesty can turn that bond into something healthier. One spring afternoon, Chloe attended a safe table workshop for kids. She stood in front of a sample lunch station and placed red allergen markers beside unsafe foods. Then she looked at me and said, "So the table can be kind?" I had to turn away for a second. "Yes," I said, "that is exactly the point. A table can be kind. It can also be cruel. Not because wooden plates have morality, Because the people setting it decide who must shrink, who must risk, and who is worth protecting. For years, my family set tables where my safety was treated like an inconvenience. I build different tables now. I have not spoken to Grant in 2 years. My parents still send messages on holidays. Sometimes apologies. Sometimes guilt. Sometimes photographs from old Thanksgivings where we all look happier than we were. I do not hate them. Hate would require a kind of daily intimacy I no longer offer. I simply do not give unsafe people access to my nervous system because they share my last name. That lesson took me too long to learn. Blood is not a reservation. It does not guarantee a seat at my table. It does not override danger. And it does not make forgiveness compulsory. On the second Thanksgiving after the incident, I hosted dinner for Amelia, Chloe, Denise, Tessa, and a few friends who understood that love reads labels. Every dish was marked. Every ingredient was known. No one rolled their eyes. Before we ate, Chloe raised her juice glass and said, "To save tables." We all raised our glasses. And for the first time in my life, Thanksgiving tasted like peace. People still ask me whether the settlement was worth losing my family. The question is built on the wrong assumption. I did not lose my family because I told the truth. I discovered what had been missing from the family I thought I had. Accountability, safety, respect, the willingness to protect a child before protecting a reputation. Grant thought he was exposing my sensitivity. Instead, he exposed the whole system that had protected him. My parents thought silence would keep us together. Instead, silence had been the thing making abuse possible. And I thought my job was to survive the table. Now my work is to redesign it. The bowl of crab soup did not end my family. It revealed the truth of it. A little girl nearly died because a grown man needed applause more than he respected a boundary. So I chose the child. I chose the evidence. I chose the future table. And if that makes me dramatic, then let the record show I became dramatic enough to save lives. There is one part of the story people do not ask about very often. They ask about the settlement. They ask about Grant losing his job. They ask about Chloe's hospital stay. But almost no one asks what happened in my body after my family stopped having easy access to me. At first, I expected relief to feel like sunlight. It did not. It felt like shaking. For weeks, every time my phone lit up with my mother's name, my stomach dropped before my mind had time to remember I did not have to answer. Every holiday advertisement made me tense. Every commercial with laughing families around a table felt like a language I had once been forced to speak incorrectly. Therapy helped me understand that my body had been trained to treat family contact like an emergency. Not because I was weak, because I had spent years managing rooms where my safety could become a joke at any moment. One afternoon, my therapist asked me what I would have done differently if I could go back to the Thanksgiving table. For a long time, I thought the answer was obvious. I would leave earlier. I would refuse the invitation. I would stand up the moment Grant disappeared into the kitchen. Then I realized the question underneath. What would I have done if I already believed I was allowed to protect myself? That question hurt. Because the truth was not that I lacked knowledge. I knew the risk. I knew the protocols. I knew the danger. What I did not yet fully believe was that my own family's comfort was not more important than my right to breathe. Safe table design became more than a company because of that. It became a way to teach other people what I had learned too late. A boundary is not rude. A warning is not an accusation. A label is not drama. And a person who mocks your safety is not confused about love. They are confused about power. 6 months after the settlement, I was invited to train the staff of a large restaurant group. The room was full of chefs, managers, servers, and owners. Some were attentive. Some looked bored. A few had the familiar expression of people who thought allergies were customer inconvenience dressed as medical language. So I began with Chloe. Not her name, not her face. Her story. I told them about a child at a family table, a contaminated piece of bread, 7 minutes waiting for an ambulance, and the sound of a mother realizing one careless adult had changed her daughter's relationship with food forever. No one looked bored after that. Then I placed a bowl in the center of the training table. Empty, white, ordinary. I said, a bowl is never just a bowl when someone in the room has trusted you with their safety. By the end of the session, the head chef asked if we could redesign their entire allergen workflow. That became my biggest contract. And for the first time, the very thing my family had mocked became the foundation of my independence. Grant heard about it through someone else. He sent one email. So you built a business off ruining me. I read it once. Then I deleted it. There was a time I would have written paragraphs explaining that he had ruined himself. There was a time I would have tried to make him understand. But understanding is not something you can pour into someone committed to staying empty. So I let silence answer him. Not the old silence. Not the silence that swallowed me to keep peace. A new silence. The silence of a locked door. The silence of a table where he no longer had a seat.